It's Jerningam here. I'm updating my PS4, the old one, because there's something wrong with my other PS4. Just thought I'd do a quick video. There's my original PlayStation 4 down there at the bottom, and this is the one here. My PS4 Pro is in the bag here, as you can see. This is my. Try and get out of the bag. Can't get it out of the bloody bag now. This is my PS4 Pro here. There's something wrong with it, as I'm waiting for this to download. I don't know what is wrong with my PS4 Pro, as you guys can see there. That's a plate of food I had before. I had some pizza on that plate, see it's all got orange stuff on there, that doesn't matter. But anyway, there's something wrong with this. I don't know what's going on with my PS4. Like I say, I've had to swap them both over. And plus the thing's updating because I've not been playing on this PlayStation 4 for a long time, and I swapped over to my PS4 Pro because it was something new. There's a fault on it. I don't know if it's going to do the same thing on this machine. It may do the same thing. The Twitch may not work. It may work, or that error message what I kept getting on that PS4 Pro, which is over here, as you can see on the bed. I need to put the plate in the kitchen as well, so we're going to wait until this loads and then we can see what the problem is. Because it's just ridiculous. When something's broken and doesn't work, it annoys me. I mean, a lot of people have probably been in that situation before. I had one of my family members come round today and try and help with the problem. I appreciate what he's done for me, and there's still a problem. I may have to take this PlayStation 4 Pro to the game station tomorrow and see what they can do. Because I have not got a clue why my PS4 Pro is doing that. I mean, not everybody's got a PS4 Pro, but some people have. But you can play in 4K and stuff on your PS4 Pro. Now I've gone back to the original, I can't play in 4K. I don't know what's going on. I'm hoping that I can sort the problem out or resolve the problem. We'll have to see, I think. I'll get myself all worked up over probably nothing. But for the time being, I've used my old PS4 while this one goes to the game shop tomorrow. And my Xbox One is in the game shop as well, because I'm on a YouTube channel and a Twitch channel on there. So, as I say, my world is expanding and things are hopefully going to go the way I want it to go. Anyway, the old PS4 has just reset itself. It's a bit of a pain in the ass swapping your PS4s over, but I've got no other option. I want to know what's going on. If this is the same thing as what the PS4 Pro is, not loading, not working, then I know there's a fault on the PlayStation. If that makes any sense. And it's, by the looks of things, this PS4, the old one, is doing a massive update, as you guys can see here. I didn't really want to be swapping over PlayStation 4s, as I can keep saying, but this is just the way it is sometimes. Things work and things don't work. But I thought it was me, or something may have happened with the PlayStation, as you saw on many, what's the word I'm looking for? I've done before. I mean, if I can't do on this PlayStation, obviously there is a problem. And obviously there's something I must have done when I streamed that game. Remember I told you about that Control game, and they banned me from YouTube. Now, I could be wrong on that. It could be just a fault with the PlayStation. If it is, then hopefully the game shop will sort it out for me tomorrow. But we'll have to see and wait and hope that they can fix the problem for me. So now my machine is loading up again. It's done a massive update, as most things happen on Xbox One and PS4. It's ridiculous at times, but there we go. It's your bloody beard as well. What a crazy day, as one would say to me, guys. What a crazy day indeed. When things just don't work properly sometimes. Right, let's have a look. Can I have a look at this PS4? Plug, bollocks. Plug out, actually. Oh, it says it's rebuilding the database, as you guys can see here. So rebuilding the database. There we go. And this will be there. Yep, working. Right. So that must have been a massive download. I'm telling you. Basically. Oh, bollocks. Okay, so I'm going to try and put my phone there so everyone can see me. Alright, so what the fuck is going on here? I may have left my GTA game in the other machine. Why is this bloody thing not working? There we go. Alright, let's look here. So I've swapped them both over now. Oh, fuck. What's going on here? No. Oh, you stupid. Hello? Hello? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Good. I've swapped both of my PS4s. I swapped my PS4 over because the PS4 Pro is broken. So I'm back on my old PS4. Can you hear me? So my old PS4 is broke. So I'm going to have to check this PS4 now as I'm on here. Let's have a look, guys. I'm live streaming as well as I'm doing it. So we're going to go on to a game that I've not been playing for a while, like the Lime. We're going to try and stream that. Hey? PlayStation now. No, it's wrong. Okay. Remember Turgan? Yeah? I don't know, first person. There's something wrong with my PS4 Pro, and I don't want to be on my old. See, guys, I don't really want to be on my old PS4, but there's something wrong with the other one. It's ridiculous. Right. Right. So stream broadcasting. Right. I'm going to know. Go to video inputs. Okay, so oh no, if it's not working. No. Right, just a minute, guys. I'm just trying to sort something out. This is annoying me now. No. Right, no. Still saying the same thing, isn't it? I was hoping it was going to fix itself, but obviously not. Still saying exactly the same thing as the other PS4. Give me a second, I don't know what the hell is going on here. Right. I was hoping, guys, that the PS4 would have been different on here. But obviously it's giving me the same messages and stuff, and I've just tried to load up YouTube again, and it's not even changing that either. I mean, I'm going to be streaming on Xbox tomorrow, but I want to really stream on PS4. It says I'm on air, but why is it not working? It doesn't make any sense. Now it's saying I'm on air. Where's that Hitman game gone? To use network features, you must update applications. Okay, so what do I do then? I'm going to take a screenshot. To use features, you must update applications. How do you do that? Right, so update applications. I think. Application. Got a clue where applications are. Update applications. Right, just give me a second. I need to use feature, update an application. No. I need to update. I just need to figure out. Just give me a second, guys. Right, first person, where is applications on the PS4? It says I need to update applications so I can stream. Yeah, it says I have to update my applications to stream. Where's that? Notifications. That's what it's saying to me. I need to update. Are you sure it's on there? Update notification settings. So what do you do? Just go in your notifications? Yeah. Okay. Is it notifications with select friends? Is that it? No. What is it then? Yes, I know that. I'm on the other PS4. Right, notifications. It says update it. Yeah. So I'm uploading it now or updating it. Right. Okay. So I have to go to symptom. Hey. Oh, this is confusing. This is confusing. This is now. To use network features, you must update applications. Check in your downloads status. Update file. Go to notifications screen. Screen. Why is it saying that for then? Well, the Twitch is still doing the same bloody thing. It's not. It keeps saying preparing and preparing and preparing. That hasn't changed. That's kind of irritating. It says I'm live in the stream. Well, I'm not live. It doesn't make no sense. I know, yeah. And the message. Look, I'll show you guys. All the messages are on the PS4 for me to stream, and it says here, guys. I'll show you. It says I click on the share button. It says the green lights on there, red lights on there, are on there. Go into there. It doesn't say on there. Bloody daft, man. What the hell? Well, I've swapped over PS4s and it's still saying the same thing. It said, well, I reckon it needs wiping. No, I don't know. Bloody joke it is. God knows it's very itching. Yeah, what? Really. This is doing my head in. I can't figure this bloody problem out, man. This is what I've been doing most of the day, guys, trying to sort out the problem with my PlayStation. But the thing is, the PlayStation will not bloody stream properly. me now. Just thinking. I may have to go out tomorrow, like I say, guys, and ask the game shop. They can sort it for me. Some people can sort the problems out, but I can't seem to fix the fucking problem, which is kind of annoying. Check that bloody message again. She bloody knows. Well, I've changed them over here. The PlayStations. To use network features, you must update applications to check download status. And PS. Stupid thing. No, I'm just thinking. I don't know unless you've it says on a Hitman. So it says I'm on air still, but I can't bloody. Why is it not working? This is really pissing me off. Comments are not showing on the game. No, I'm just going to be annoyed. Trying to figure out this problem. Yeah, I'm filming, yeah. Right, don't know why it's saying I'm on air, which I'm clearly not on there. On Hitman. The red thing should be saying preparing, but not working. Stupid bloody thing, really. Audio mic off. So the. Wait a minute. There's something right here. Okay, let's check it again. Right, no, that's not right either. Still saying the same thing. It's working. why it's doing that. If I knew that, then it's just the messages are not coming through. If the messages would come through on the game, then I'd know what's going on. You know, I've been very patient with this, guys. Thinking away, thinking ahead with this, trying to sort the problem out myself, as you guys can see on the TV. But it just doesn't want to do it. Just trying to. Right, give me a second, guys. Let the camera will stay there. Trying to position the camera to the TV so you can see what I'm doing. Just do it, but it won't stay there. Oh, bloody hell. Right. This is really doing my head in. Why the things never seem to work properly when you try to sort them out yourself. This is very irritating for me. Hell. I'm sorry for swearing a lot, though. So, trying to find that. Alright, just really stupid. There we go. Right, there we go. Let's try and find what we're looking for here. There. Right, guys. Like I say, I'm still trying to figure out why I can't stream or anything. Why the PlayStation's not letting me stream. Why it's taking the piss of me not working. If it makes any sense. Why is this chair so stupid as well? Everything seems to be. Oh my god, what? 2 seconds, guys, there's something wrong with the bloody chair. Why is it make any sense? I'm getting very angry. The chair, because the chair shouldn't be like that. It should be all the way this way. There we go, sorted. I'm getting very angry and short tempered, as you guys can see. I can't stream my games. Some people would say that just turn back up again, turn off again. Right. As I was saying, guys, I'd like to be able to stream again. Oh, this chair is it's broke. Pretty sure. Bloody. Stupid bloody thing. I am getting kind of fed up with this. I didn't really. I had to wipe everything off the PS4. Hopefully. Oh, now it's updating. As you guys can see here, YouTube update. Copying applications file. You want applications network skip. So it's doing a big update, as you guys can see. I thought it'd be interesting for a video to actually do this sort of update with the PS4. But who knows today? I said, who knows today? No, who knows? It makes me angry. I don't know why I get so angry and annoyed. I have to squeeze the ball. I did get angry. Damn it. Come on. Why is it not downloading? It's like, taking the piss, man. YouTube verse is 0%. Let's have to delete some of this stuff off to make it download, because I can't have all this stuff on there to this. Waking now? 2%, 2.2. Right, so there's something clogging up the download for YouTube. No, I'm just checking. Let's show a bit of Boris Johnson speaking then, guys.
I spoke to you from the steps and said that this government was not going to hang around and that we would not wait until Brexit Day, October the 31st, to deliver on the priorities.
Boris Johnson, guys,
so I'm proud to say that on Wednesday, Chancellor Sajid Javid is going to set out the most ambitious spending round for more than a decade. I said I want to make your streets safer, and that is why we are recruiting another 20,000 police officers. I said I wanted to improve your hospital and reduce waiting times at your GP, and so we are doing 20 new hospital upgrades in addition to the 34 billion more going into the NHS. And I said I wanted every child in this country to have a superb education. That's why I announced last week that we are levelling up funding across the country and spending much more next year in both primary and secondary schools. And it's to push forward this agenda on these and many other fronts that we need a Queen's speech in October, while leaving due time to debate Brexit and other matters. And as we come to that Brexit deadline, I am encouraged by the progress we are making. In the last few weeks, the chances of a deal have been rising, I believe, for three reasons. They can see that we want a deal. They can see that we have a clear vision for our future relationship with the EU, something that has not always perhaps been the case. And they can see that we are utterly determined to strengthen our position by getting ready to come out, regardless, come what may. But if there's one thing that can hold us back in these talks, it is the sense in Brussels that MPs may find some way to cancel the referendum, or that tomorrow MPs will vote with Jeremy Corbyn for yet another pointless delay. I don't think they will. I hope that they won't. But if they do, they will plainly chop the legs out from under the UK position and make any further negotiation absolutely impossible. And so I say, to show our friends in Brussels that we are united in our purpose, MPs should vote with the government against Corbyn's pointless delay. I want everybody to know there are no circumstances in which I will ask Brussels to delay. We're leaving on the 31st of October, no ifs or buts. We will not accept any attempt to go back on our promises or scrub that referendum. And armed and fortified with that conviction, I believe we will get a deal at that crucial summit in October, a deal that Parliament will certainly be able to scrutinise. And in the meantime, let's let our negotiators get on with their work without that sword of Damocles over their necks and without an election. Without an election. I don't want an election. You don't want an election. Let's get on with the people's agenda. Fighting crime, improving the NHS, boosting schools, cutting the cost of living, unlocking talent and opportunity across the entire United Kingdom with infrastructure, education and technology. It is a massive agenda. Let's come together and get it done, and let's get Brexit done by October the 31st. Thank you very much. 5 weeks ago, I spoke to you from the steps and said that this government was not going to hang around and that we would not wait until Brexit Day, October the 31st, to deliver on the priorities of the British people. And so I'm proud to say that on Wednesday, Chancellor Sajid Javid is going to set out the most ambitious spending round for more than a decade. I said I wanted to make your streets safer, and that is why we are recruiting another 20,000 police officers. I said I wanted to improve. Chances of a deal have been rising.
So I've seen that one before. So
as has become ever clearer, a no-deal Brexit is really a Trump deal Brexit, leading to a one-sided United States trade deal that will put us at the mercy of Donald Trump and the biggest American corporations. The pally enthusiasm of the US President and Britain's new Prime Minister only serves to underline that. In Boris Johnson, Trump has found a compliant British leader who will dance to his tune. So when a Prime Minister who hasn't won an election and who doesn't have a majority decrees that Parliament will be shut down because he knows his will be resisted. So first, we must come together to stop no deal. This week could be our last chance. We are working with other parties to do everything necessary to pull our country back from the brink. Then we need a general election.
Oh, God, not again.
When a government finds itself without a majority, the solution is not to undermine democracy. The solution is to let the people decide and call a general election.
I normally, with a speech like this, try and think of a few
Tony Blair, guys.
jokes to kind of loosen everyone up, but I think Brexit's now gone beyond the joke, frankly. So there you go, and I'll crash straight into the speech. In the modern history of Britain, there's never been a more important moment for politicians to put country before tribe and national interest before self-interest. We're numb to the state of our politics. What is happening is shocking, irresponsible, and dangerous. Our government is ripping Britain out of the European Union by common acceptance, the most important change in this country's affairs since 1945, in the most extreme form of Brexit imaginable, without an agreement to replace the complicated network of political and commercial arrangements we have built over decades of European membership. And it's doing so without the consent of Parliament, but with a deliberate manoeuvre to curtail it, and without the express consent of the British people, relying instead on a one-off plebiscite now over 3 years ago, in which not for one moment was it suggested by those advocating Brexit that no deal would be the outcome. Parliament, the capstone of our democracy, is held up to ridicule as the enemy of the very people who elected it. Not once have our nation's leadership explained to the public why Brexit's been so difficult to resolve, which is because there are at least 3 different versions of it: hard, soft, and no deal, and all are vastly different in their implications. Rather, it has suited them to ride a wave of just do it emotion, born of public impatience. You're bored of Brexit. I'm bored of Brexit, right? We all are. But no serious political leader would suggest that we should take a decision of this magnitude by an effluxion of patience. The obvious way to resolve Brexit was by setting out the different forms of it, making Parliament choose, and if they can't, asking the people to have the final say. This has never been tried by government in a structured way, and is now dismissed as a ploy of obstruction when it remains the only plan of reason. So we are poised to leave Europe on the 31st of October with no deal, and no idea, frankly, of what it really means. Difficult, damaging, or disastrous. But many believe it will be a disaster, not only economically, but in areas like security. And I ask, does no one presently in government, particularly those cabinet members who used to protest against the irresponsibility of such a course, understand the consequence of doing this in circumstances where a large part of the country will regard this outcome as illegitimate? Democracy depends on a shared sense of legitimacy in decision-making. Legitimacy is not the same as agreement with government. Governments do things people dislike. But outside of the political fringes, most people accept their right to do them. This is now a crisis of legitimacy. Yet no one in government even pretends to address these anxieties. And we're a riven nation. One part of the people is enraged Brexit is being thwarted, the other enraged by the manner it is being done. Each side accuses the other of being anti-democratic, of deception and destruction of faith in politics. People versus Parliament, Parliament versus government, people versus people. Elements threaten to take to the street. Never a good way to decide anything. Brexit has become so bitter, in my view, because Brexit is not simply about a decision to leave the EU. It is about culture, identity, values, and generation. The essence is not about trade. It is about who we are as a nation in the 21st century. Normally, questions of identity play out over time, by evolution, or by staggered points of development in successive elections. But the holding of the referendum turned this into a moment of revolution. It forced us to confront a division, perhaps better unconfronted. On the one side are those who feel Britain as they know it is being cast aside, the things they like about Britain disappearing, and in their place, petty political correctness, bureaucratic obsessions magnified and exemplified by Europe, and above all, obedience to the god of multiculturalism at the expense of our own culture. This part of Britain imagines a parallel with the Second World War, a period of our history which rightly makes us proud. You read the speeches of the Brexiteers and they're replete with references to this feat of glory. But it casts a long shadow over the British psyche. It creates a longing to live the moment again, to see each new circumstance through the lens of its narrative, a life and death struggle between us and those who would harm us, where against all odds we triumph, a series of darkest hours from which we emerge to the sunlit uplands. Those of us on the other side think if there is a parallel with World War II, it's the need to stand firm when you're doing what you believe to be right for the country, even when it's unpopular. We look at Europe today and see 70 years of peace and relative stability. We see this crisis as one visited upon ourselves by ourselves, a folly of nostalgia. We celebrate our cultural diversity. We revere but don't dwell on Britain's past or see it as the only point of reference for our future. We're comfortable with a secondary European identity alongside our primary British one. This profound cultural difference was also part of what we were deciding in June 2016. It's a big decision to take on one day and one vote. Since Boris Johnson has become Prime Minister, everything has changed and nothing has changed. The mood has changed radically. He has energy and strategy to cajole Tory MPs into not tying his hands because a deal with Europe is possible, to cajole Europe by the threat he's serious about no deal, and if both fail, to blame Parliament and the EU for their intransigence. Our government has been taken over by a gang of adventurers, but don't underestimate the appeal of adventure after a long period of paralysis. The contrast with Theresa May is stark. And many are prepared, like him, to believe that with belief, it can be done. It will end. The word Brexit will vanish into history. We can get on with our lives. So their strategy has been to go at it full tilt, whipped on by the Brexit press and a vibrant social media campaign, buoyed by the weakness of the opposition, the spending pledges rolling off the conveyor belt, as if it is only Brexit which has liberated us from austerity, posing as the saviors of the people, ready to steamroller over the recalcitrant, out-of-touch elite. However, this public sentiment, like the entire Johnson premiership, is based on an illusion, a national example of what we all know from our personal life lessons, which is that decisions based on fatigue and desperation are usually wrong, and that belief can give you the courage to take a risk, but it cannot alter the objective facts as to what the risk is. This is where nothing has changed. The long-term impact of the Brexit decision is unaltered. The political consequence of Brexit is to diminish us globally. Within a relatively short space of time, the world will evolve into a combination of giant powers and regional blocs. The giants will be the USA, China, and probably India. The blocs will come together to achieve collectively what it is impossible to achieve individually, to sit at the top table of geopolitics on equal terms. This is the modern rationale for Europe, not peace but power. And in time, in Southeast Asia, ASEAN, in South America, Mercosur, in Central Asia, the bloc formed around Russia, the Africa Union. Britain should retain its strong and special relationship with the United States, but its natural place is with Europe. For reasons of history, culture, commerce, values, and of course, geography. It's quicker now to go by train to Paris than Newcastle. The economics of Brexit have not changed. We exit our largest trading market and the largest commercial market in the world in a manner no modern developed country has contemplated, let alone done before. Brexit is based on a colossal myth that Europe controls our laws. In fact, virtually any decision that affects the practical life of British people is decided not in Brussels, but here in Britain. The NHS, education, crime, taxes, welfare, pensions, defence. Even on immigration other than freedom of movement within Europe, Britain decides British immigration policy. So the Brexiteers were driven to construct their case around the area where, as the settled policy of successive governments, we have indeed pooled our lawmaking. That's the single market and the customs union. Every time Brexiteers are challenged on specifically why it is so important to our identity to exit Europe, they're then obliged to resort to bizarre examples, as with Boris Johnson and truck windows, if you remember, when resigning as Foreign Secretary, kipper wrapping when fighting to be Tory leader, and Melton Mowbray pork pies when advocating for the supremacy of American trade deals. These would be trivial even if true, and as it turns out, they're both trivial and untrue. But as a result, we are torn between the self-evident truth that exiting such a relationship is bound to be painful, and the necessity of satisfying the Brexiteer myth that we must exit to preserve British identity. Thus, we ended up with the unobtainable cake-and-eat-it strategy. And then we have the added dimension of the Irish border, where naturally the accepted need to keep the border open conflicts with the fact that for the first time, Ireland and the UK will not be in the same economic or political status as Europe. The backstop is merely the expression of this dilemma, because Brexit is really a choice, not a negotiation. If we want out of the single market and customs union, fine, but then we'll have a hard border. If we want an open border, we stay connected to the European system. The latest attempt at a negotiation, as far as we know it, simply underscores this. The new Prime Minister is apparently offering Europe regulatory alignment in certain areas, which will mean effectively abiding by Europe's rules overseen by the ECJ. This is a slimmer version of the May deal presented at Chequers, which he resigned over. He may succeed in this negotiation, but I doubt it. Because ultimately, Europe may change the form of the concept behind the backstop, but not the concept itself. In which case, we bump up against something else which hasn't changed: the impact of no deal. No amount of self-belief can alter its reality. No deal is presented also as the end of Brexit. On the contrary, it's not the end. It's a fresh beginning, because then we will be obliged to negotiate with Europe a new trade deal, though with little or no negotiating leverage. And of course, Europe wants to avoid no deal, and the Irish particularly will be badly damaged by it. Something of which we should be ashamed, given all the extraordinary efforts of so many to lay to rest the ghosts of the often savage past between British and Irish. But the principal damage will be to ourselves. And we misunderstand European politics. Brexit is our daily news curse, but not theirs. Germany has its own problems, France and Italy theirs. It's vexing for them. It's paramount for us. So this is a reckless path, but there is a strategy behind it. And we must be equally strategic in opposing it. And we cannot let the big arguments be lost in the minutiae of parliamentary process, particularly this week. First, we must constantly debunk the notion that the June 2016 referendum is a mandate for a no-deal Brexit. Feeble attempts to suggest it is have founded on the overwhelming evidence that, on the contrary, Brexiteers continually stated there would be a deal and that it would be easy. Second, therefore, if the government policy is to come out with no deal, then the mandate to do it should come either from Parliament or the people. Third, and this is the crux, if Parliament cannot agree, then the right way to consult the people is not through a general election, but through a referendum. That means as MPs from different parties have agreed that there should not be a motion of no confidence, but rather legislation preventing no deal, should the government seek an election, it should be refused in favour of a referendum. Now, I know it's counterintuitive for opposition parties to refuse an election, but in this exceptional case, it's vital they do so as a matter of principle until Brexit is resolved. Brexit is an issue which stands on its own, was originally decided on its own, and should be reconsidered on its own. The Brexiteers are laying a trap to seem as if pushed into an election whilst actively preparing for one. And they do this because they know there are two issues in British politics, not one, and we should be frank about it. One is Brexit, the other is the Corbyn leadership. It is the interplay between these two issues that has really shaped and defined British politics over the past 3 to 4 years. Boris Johnson knows that if no deal Brexit stands on its own as a proposition, it might well fail. But if he mixes it up with the Brexit question and the Corbyn question together in a general election, he could succeed, despite a majority being against a no-deal Brexit, because some may fear a Corbyn premiership more. The Labour leader could be similarly tempted. Without Brexit, winning an election is hard, but with it in the mix, especially as no deal, he may gain support from people who otherwise would not entertain his premiership. In backing away from the idea of himself as a caretaker prime minister, Jeremy Corbyn has behaved responsibly, and if he continues to put country first, he will benefit the country and himself. He can now play a decisive role in how Brexit develops. But he should see an election before Brexit is decided for the elephant trap that it is. After Brexit is resolved, an immediate election is right and necessary. And if Labour approaches the resolution of Brexit with the spirit of strategic cooperation it has shown recently, it will emerge with its standing and even that of its leadership greatly enhanced. So if the government tries to force an election now, Labour should vote against it. The challenge of such an election is brutally clear. And leave aside for a moment what's fair and unfair. No opposition leader or party with these poll ratings has won an election. The 2017 result has inoculated the Labour Party against a realistic assessment of where it stands. To be sure, an election is a risk for the Tories. Each Tory candidate will have to sign up to no deal. The Brexit Party is a unpredictable bag. Scotland will be very tough for them. But my bet is the Brexit Party will collapse them. The Labour Party at present will struggle.
My phone's just died on me, guys.
Not well enough to govern. The opposition vote, therefore, is going to split. And I'm insisting that delivers a comfortable Tory majority.
Oh, it's not bad.
When you get to real-world politics, this will be presented as, do you want Boris Johnson delivering Brexit plus a populist Tory programme, or do you want to turn the country, its economy and security over to Jeremy Corbyn and his small group of acolytes from the far left? The parliamentary tactics are clear. Seize the agenda. But the strategic goal must be that if it is the people who are called upon to break the deadlock, they should be asked to do so directly on the specific issue, not an election to choose a government. So, should it come to an election, then we would be obliged to try to replicate that well-orchestrated cooperation which has been so remarkable in Parliament across tribal boundaries, but in the much more complicated setting of an election, in order to mobilise the potential majority of the country against no deal. There's a will to do this, but the way is dense with obstacles. But we would have to try. In conclusion, return to what is at stake. Brexit is the answer to none of Britain's challenges. Consider all the announcements Boris Johnson is making. Not one of them depends on Britain leaving the EU. Brexit is a gigantic distraction. It will cause slow but significant damage to our economy. It is a self-inflicted diminution of our geopolitical relevance. It is opposed by the overwhelming majority of the younger generation, who nonetheless will live with its consequences. And no-deal Brexit poses a genuine threat to the Union of the United Kingdom. This is a time of genuine national peril. To their credit, many politicians across all parties have been willing to put aside normal politics to meet this abnormal challenge in these abnormal times. They should stay on this path. An intelligent and rational way to Brexit resolution can still be found. But my point this morning is that it requires, as ever in politics, the alliance of principle with strategy. Thank you.
Well, that was a good speech from Tony Blair. I mean, my phone's on low battery as well, so they could keep filming stuff, and I don't know. So, okay. Right, at least I've got the thing plugged in.
Parliament has been on holiday for 6 weeks, but Boris Johnson and his aides have been working flat out to make good on their vow that Brexit will happen by November, with or without any agreed plan with the European Union.
To show our friends in Brussels that we are united in our purpose, MPs should vote with the government against Corbyn's pointless delay. I want everybody to know there are no circumstances in which I will ask Brussels to delay.
But since he has a majority of just one in Parliament, it doesn't take many rebels from his own Conservative Party to cause him huge problems. And they are so concerned about a no-deal Brexit that they're ignoring threats to kick them out of the parliamentary party. And it seems at least some will back a plan to order the government to delay Brexit yet again.
I've decided that the interests of my constituents are best represented by outlining the perils of no deal and continuing to do what I've done since 2016, which is urge the government to make a deal so that we leave the EU in the best possible way, both for the UK and the EU.
If they succeed, Johnson has a number of options, and they are all incendiary. He could either choose to ignore the will of Parliament and push on with Brexit anyway, and face accusations of being dictatorial, or, more likely, he could call a national election, which would, in effect, become a second referendum on Brexit.
The big fundamental calculation that some in Boris Johnson's camp are making is that currently he has the opportunity to unite supporters of Brexit under one ticket, under the Boris Johnson ticket, while the Remain parties, the Liberal Democrats, the Labour Party, the Green Party, the Nationalist parties, remain completely divided. And that's the big fundamental calculation that some in Boris Johnson's camp are making. Whether or not that will pay off, it remains to be seen.
All this means there is enormous pressure too on the main opposition leader Jeremy Corbyn. Much less personally popular than Johnson, on Monday the former Labour Prime Minister Tony Blair notably failed to offer Corbyn his own backing.
In backing away from the idea of himself as a caretaker Prime Minister, Jeremy Corbyn has behaved responsibly, and if he continues to put country first, he will benefit the country and himself. He can now play a decisive role in how Brexit develops. But he should see an election before Brexit is decided for the elephant trap that it is.
Everyone here is gearing up for what feels like one of the most important moments in modern British political history, which will help determine whether Brexit will happen at all, and if so, under what terms. For some time now, Parliament, and in particular the Conservative Party, have been tearing themselves to pieces. Maybe this, eventually, will be the defining moment. The EU is sitting and waiting, watching for any piece of movement to clarify what will happen. They, like everyone else, want an end to all this. Lawrence Lee, Al Jazeera.
Well, it would make ideal sense if it did. I'd have to charge the phone up and do some more filming of this later, guys. Hope you've all enjoyed what I've shown you, and I'll catch you on the next stream. Take it easy, guys. Peace.